The Henoch Prophecies. Billy Meier speaks with alien contactee Quetzal on the future prophecies and prediction of World War III. 215th contact, Saturday, February 28, 1987. Billy had 11-year contact with Quetzal, who was commander of all pleasure and stations in our solar system. Quetzal says, "Before I give you a clear account of the prophecies of Henoch, I would like to point out that prophecies are always changeable and can be changed for the better. If man makes positive changes in his thoughts, feelings and actions, leading to that which is better and positively progressive. Prophecies always rest upon specific causes. These again result in certain effects, whereby these effects can be changed at any time if only the preceding causes are changed in their form. Therefore, it is possible that negative or evil prophecies do not have to be fulfilled if the preceding causes will be purposely changed, in the manner that positivity and good develop instead of negativity and evil. However, this does not apply to predictions, as these rest upon events that cannot be changed, are inevitable and surely and definitely will occur in the future. Predictions rest upon a preview and thus on a direct viewing of the future, and have to do with neither prophecy nor with calculation of probability. So when I make a portion of Henoch's prophecies for the third millennium known to you, it does not mean that they have to be fulfilled, because the prerequisite of fulfillment in each case would be that the already existing causes continue to exist as also continue to be created in the future, so that a fulfillment of the prophecies can come to pass. Thus, provided that human beings of Earth will become reasonable, the possibility exists that by a reasonable change in the way of thinking as well as a reasonable development in feeling, and an equally reasonable way of acting, everything changes for the better and positive, whereby prophecies do not have to be fulfilled. However, if this transformation does not occur, a very evil, wicked and negative time lies ahead for the Earth and its entire population in the coming new millennium. Billy says, since the Second World War, the thoughts, feelings and actions of the human being of Earth have changed much towards the positive and good, but all that achieved is not enough in my opinion, as the great transformation towards the better has not been achieved yet, neither by the mighty of this world nor all of mankind of Earth itself. In the years gone by, you have made many predictions and calculations of probability as well as mentioned prophetic facts concerning the economic, military and political situation on Earth, whereby I was requested to spread this information, which I indeed have done. Governments and newspapers, radio stations as well as TV stations and many private persons worldwide were informed by me. But the entire effort did not achieve anything, because up to now mankind has carried on in the old manner and has paid no attention whatsoever to prophecies, predictions and calculations of probability. And the same will most likely be the case in the future, when I receive permission from you in the coming time to spread the prophecies of Henoch for the third millennium. But, nevertheless, I feel that Henoch's message for the future must be made known and distributed, because somehow it may bear fruit yet. Quetzal says, "You apparently never give up hope. Your optimism is honorable and deserves to be heard by human beings. But the way things have developed throughout this century, there is not too much hope that human beings of Earth will come to their senses and heed your words. This will then be the case only when the prophecies prove to be true or, even worse, have already come to pass. Probably only then will the time come when a defamation against you will end in regard to your contacts with us, although they will long continue to be vehemently disputed by your enemies as well as by pathological know-it-alls and critics who dismiss them as swindle, lies and fraud. The full truth about our contacts with you will be proven in the distant future, and then mankind will accept our help we offer through you, even when they erroneously assume we come from the seven-star system known to human beings of Earth as the Pleiades. The pleasure and claim to live in the Pleiades, an altered time-space configuration about 80 light-years beyond the Pleiades, Billy says. Semyaz and Ta already explained this to me. But tell us now what the new millennium will bring to human beings of Earth and the planet Earth according to the prophecies of Henoch. Quetzal says, I will do that in a moment, but I would like to explain before beginning that I am not authorized to give exact indication of years in an official manner. If the human being of Earth continues to live in the same way as he has done up to now, forming his thoughts and feelings in the same manner, indulging in the same actions as he has hitherto, then the words of the prophecies of Henoch could not be any clearer. The point in time at which these prophecies will begin to be fulfilled will be when a pope will no longer reside in Rome. All of Europe will then fall victim to a terrible punishment by evil powers. The Christian religion will collapse and the churches and monasteries will end up in ruins and ashes. Monstrous forces will be created by science and will be released by the military forces and armies as well as by terrorists, causing great destruction. Millions and even billions of people will be killed by acts of terrorism, by wars and civil wars. And finally, in some parts of the world, every third human being, and, in other places, every fourth human being, will lose his or her life. The nations of the East will rise against the nations of the West against the East. Many deaths will be inflicted upon the people by fighter and bomber aircraft, and bombs and rockets will destroy and annihilate smaller and larger villages and cities. The people will be completely powerless against all this and will live through 888 days of hell on earth, suffering hunger and plagues, which will claim even more lives than the war itself. The time will be severe as never before experienced on earth. Ultimately, nothing can be bought or sold any longer. All provisions will be rationed, and if a human being steals even a small piece of bread, she will have to pay for it with his or her life. Many waters will mix with human blood and turn red, as once in the past the Nile in Egypt turned red with blood, and it will be that the fanatics of Islam will rise up against the countries of Europe, and all will shake and quiver. Everything in the West will be destroyed. England will be conquered and thrown down to the lowest level of misery, and the fanatics and warriors of Islam will retain their power for a long time. However, not only Europe will be affected but ultimately all the countries and peoples of the earth, as the great horror expands to a war that will encompass the entire world. After the turn of the millennium, the papacy will exist only a short period. Pope John Paul II is the third from last in this position. After him, only one additional pontificate will follow. Then a Pontifex Maximus follows, who will be known as Petrus Romanus. Under his religious rule, the end of the Catholic Church will come, a total collapse becoming inevitable. That will be the beginning of the worst catastrophe that will ever have befallen the human beings in the earth. Many Catholic clerics, priests, bishops, cardinals and many others will be killed and their blood will flow in streams. But also the reformed version of Christianity will become just as infinitely small, as does Catholicism. Horrifying weapons and a possible world war, due to the fault of scientists. Enormous power will be seized by the power-hungry, and their military, their warriors and terrorists, and power will be seized as well through laser weapons of many types, but also via atomic, chemical and biological weapons. Also concerning genetic technology, enormous misuse will occur, because this will be unrestrainedly exploited for the purposes of war, not lastly due to the cloning of human beings for warring purpose, as this was practiced in ancient times with the descendants of Henoch in the regions of Sirius. However, this will not be all of the horrors, as besides the genetic technology and the chemical weapons, far worse and more dangerous and more deadly weapons of mass destruction will be produced and will be used. The irresponsible politicians will unscrupulously exercise their power, assisted by scientists and obedient military forces serving them, who together hold a deadly scepter, and will create clone-like beings, which will be bred in a total lack of conscience, and will be scientifically manipulated to become killer machines, division by division, and devoid of any feelings. They will destroy, murder and annihilate everything. The USA will set out against the Eastern countries ahead of all other financial states, and simultaneously she will have to defend herself against the Eastern intruders. In all, America will play the most decisive role, when in the guise to strive for peace and to fight against terrorism she invades many countries of the earth, bombs and destroys everything, and brings thousandfold deaths to the populations. The military politics of the USA will likewise know no limits, as neither will their economic and other political institutions, which will be focused on building and operating a world police force, as it is the case already for a long time. But that will not be enough, and, in the guise of a so-called peaceful globalization, American politics will aspire to gain absolute control of the world concerning supremacy in economy, and this will point towards the possibility that a third world war could develop from it. If human beings as a whole will not finally reflect upon reason, become reasonable, and undertake the necessary steps against the insane machinations of their governments and military powers as well as their secret services, and call a halt to the power of the irresponsible who have forsaken their responsibility in all areas. If this does not happen, many small and great nations will lose their independence and their cultural identity and will be beaten down because the USA will gain predominance over them and with evil force bring them down under her rule. At first, many countries will howl with the wolves of the US, partially due to fear of American aggressions and sanctions, as will be the case with many irresponsible ones in Switzerland and Germany, but also of other countries in part. Others will join in because they will be forced somehow to do so or will be misled by irresponsible promoters of American propaganda. Finally, many Asian, African and European states will rise up against the American hegemony, once they recognize that the United States of America is only taking advantage of them for purposes of war, conquest and exploitation. In this way, many countries will become puppet states of America before reason and realization will emerge in the responsible ones of governments and in many of the population, resulting in a turning away from the USA. However, the Great War will hardly be avoidable because the human beings of Earth will probably not accept the directions towards the better, therewith towards true love, true freedom and real peace, striving instead only towards wealth, pleasure and riches and for all manner of material values and unrestricted power. Thus, huge and deadly formations of tanks will roll across the countries while fighter planes and rockets sweep through the air and bring death, ruin, destruction and annihilation to countries and people. If the Third World War will actually happen as calculations and observations appear to indicate to be probable now and also during the approaching few decades, then, as now, the civilian population will above all have to bear the brunt of the enormous suffering in tremendous numbers in this entire catastrophe and, last but not least, the fault of the irresponsible scientists who by cloning will create human machines for military purposes, devoid of conscience and feelings, and will create immensely deadly and all-annihilating computer-like weapons. At the same time, the danger could become reality that the human combat machines, the military clones, will gain their independence, and under their own management will bring death, devastation, destruction and annihilation to the human beings of Earth and to the planet. The entire planet will become an arena of unparalleled suffering. Under their own management will bring death, devastation, destruction and annihilation to the human beings of Earth and to the planet. The entire planet will become an arena of unparalleled suffering, which will never have existed before on Earth up to that time. The cruel happenings will last about 888 days and cause civilization to collapse. Yet, the terrible scenario will continue, and epidemics and various diseases as well as enormous famine will be spread among the people, while the economy of the world will totally collapse and there will be no possibility to produce any goods. All foods and medications will be rationed. The insanity of war will extend not only across the land, but the disaster will equally be spread to the oceans, into the atmosphere, even into outer space. But there will also be settlements under the ocean that will be developed in the course of the future, and these will be attacked and destroyed, claiming the lives of many thousands of people. However, a certain maelstrom of destruction will also originate from the undersea facilities, because in the cities at the bottom of the ocean, groups of submarine pirates will be formed which will burst upwards from the depths of the ocean and will become involved in destructive actions of combat with naval units on the surface. And at this time, the possibility could become reality that extraterrestrial forces intervene against the Western industrialized countries, because these will be responsible for the extreme and enormous disaster of the coming evil times. These extraterrestrial forces will give up their anonymity and their state of secrecy and will assist those who are being terrorized by the irresponsibly acting Western countries, should this possibility become reality. In addition, apocalyptic natural catastrophes will occur which will cause all of Europe to shake and tremble, but Europe will continue to exist, even after having suffered enormous destruction. Destruction in North America, far in the west, it will be different. The United States of America will be a country of total destruction.